Thank you very much, and thank you for organizing this conference. It's really awesome. So yes, it was not a huge list of topics, more like 7 or so, because I'm an Esperanto speaker. I'm part of this clique over here that infiltrated the conference, and yeah, and at Esperanto conferences I run the way that every participant can just wake up to this morning and say, "Hey, I'm going to give a lecture about Indonesian. Who wants to come?" And so the participants make their program. So I'm very used to giving all kinds of short presentations in the course of the Esperanto meeting, and this is also a presentation that I give at an Esperanto meeting at the Eleanor Conference in New York some years back. I trust that nobody has been there, and of course I updated it and translated it to English, and yeah, I'm very happy to be talking about it today. Can I use this?
Sure.
Alright, this is for those who don't know me, because I'm maybe not quite as famous as Richard and the others YouTube polyglots. My website is learnlangs.com/blog. This is where I put all my new content now. And well, I'm from Berlin, Germany. I speak a bunch of languages, and this is incidentally how I got into computational linguistics, because I was at high school and I already spoke a bunch of languages, and I was like, what am I supposed to do with my life? What kind of profession am I supposed to pick? Because I knew that as a translator I would pretty much have to focus on a few languages and get really good at them. And I wanted to learn more languages, and I wanted to have a job where I could use many languages. So fortunately I had a history teacher who alerted me to this subject, computational linguistics, which was very good because I was also interested in computers, and I'd done some programming. So this is a combination and really an opportunity for me to use a lot of different languages, or to use my knowledge of many different languages as part of my work. So today I want to give just a brief overview of the subject, because many people have never heard of it before. Maybe a few more people have heard of it here, but a lot of people just start asking, what is computational linguistics? And I want to talk about the origins, the goals, the applications, the problems, and also give you an outlook of what's in store in the future. So origins, well, it started basically in the 50s in the USA. There were some ambitious programmers who thought they could translate Russian science magazines from Russian to English using computers. And these were programmers who didn't actually speak any Russian, and they just they thought that they could translate every single word from Russian to English and would be fine. It didn't really work out. Yeah, it didn't really work out, so there was this report, if we want to do it right, if we want to actually get some good results, then it's just unrealistic with the amount of the computing that we have right now, and it would cost too much, it would be inefficient, also unnecessary, and because we have enough translators. So basically, after this report was published, the interest in computational linguistics died down for a while. Until science had advanced enough to make it more interesting again. This was, well, in the mid-70s we had the first usable system. Systron was a basic machine translator, and there was the Canadians, for example, were very interested in machine translation because they had so many texts in English and in French, and they wanted the text to be available for everyone at the same time in both languages. So they started translating weather reports, which have a very small amount of words and sentences that they need to translate, so they were able to make a functioning system to translate weather reports from English to French. Then in the 1980s, when people saw that it was actually feasible, more or less, by now computational linguistics became more of an investment goal again, and more people got interested in it again, and more funding was available. So since the 1980s we have had rather fast progress in this subject. And the goals of computational linguistics are, on the one hand, to support linguistic research. For example, if you have a huge corpus that you need to work on for your thesis, you need to find out how did the French use the word que after a special verb, then you can just have the machine analyze your corpus for you, or at least extract all the interesting cases for that. So in that way, most linguistic students will be using one or more computational linguistics tools for their research at one point or another. Also, to simulate understanding and production of human languages, this is where computational linguistics intersects with psychology or analysis of what is going on in our brains. But the most wait a minute. I wanted to first say something else. The most important is, of course, to have some real applications that combine computers and languages that help the computers use or edit or understand human languages. And this is an example. It's probably too small to read by my experience now. This is how the computers might understand languages. This is the system Alice. You may have heard of it. It's one of those chat bots. You can try to talk to it, but the problem is that there will be inconsistencies. Okay, for example, you ask, where is Carnegie Mellon? It says it's in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I've been to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Where were you to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania? Okay, grammar is not quite good, but I saw the Amish. What did it look like to you? They are nice people. Why are they? So it's not quite stimulating conversation. And yeah, simulate understanding human languages and produce practical applications. The Alice is not really practical at this point. NLP, this is a different kind of NLP. In this case, NLP stands for Natural Language Processing. And NLP systems are systems that process natural languages through a combination of analysis or synthesis or both. So analysis would be just understanding it. Synthesis is production of human language output. Input or output, that is, it can be, you can give it a text in written form, you can give it input in vocal form. What comes out of the computer can be in written form, or it can also be audio. So many different applications. It can be in one language or in many languages. All this is covered in computational linguistics. As an example, machine translation would be both analysis and synthesis. We have a written text that goes in, written text that goes out, and it's in many languages, so that's machine translations in terms of these categories. Or if we think of a dictation system, like Dragon Naturally Speaking is also an application of computational linguistics. So there you have people speaking, and the computer writes down what they're saying. So we have input coming by voice, and output is written, and it's one language, monolingual. Here's some more applications of the subject. This is the language identification. If I go to a website and Google is not sure that I can understand it, it asks me, this page is in Russian, would you like to translate it? So obviously Google detected that the language is in Russian, that the website is in Russian. That's an application of computational linguistics. Of course, translating it would also be a different application of it. This is automatic correction of texts. I'm writing my thesis in French. I make some spelling mistakes, and it tells me that I made some mistakes. If I ask a question on a site like Quora, which, by the way, I can recommend, it's an awesome site, in what way did Esperanto change you? And then it gives me as a result, how has learning Esperanto changed your life? So for us, the questions seem very similar, but if you look at the words are actually quite different. And basically the challenge is in finding out which of the words are important and which are similar questions. To have the computer figure out which questions might answer my question, even if I phrase it differently. I already mentioned dictation software, or the other way around, to have the computer pronounce words. Like Google Translate can do that for you. If you click on this little button, it can speak. Tailspin, that's a very interesting application, just as an example of this kind of thing. It's not very well known outside computational linguistics yet that computers can actually tell stories. So this was a very early project, Tailspin, to have the computer become an inventor. And for example, it would have stories of little animals, a bear that is hungry, that must cross a river in order to find honey or something like that. And the computer has been taught how to create a storyline where there's a problem and then something happens and maybe there's another complication and eventually this problem is resolved. And this kind of story can be now written automatically. Summary. Computers can summarize texts. Not yet very well, but this is also a very important subject since so much is written these days on the internet. We want to have an overview of everything that's available on a certain subject, and it will be very important for computers to learn to summarize it. So far, if you go to a site like this, summary.com, you can already get a summary, but it's not what we're looking for. It's not yet very good. Also, automatic assistants. You may have seen one of those. Maybe your cell phone website has one where you can try to formulate what you want in your own words, and the computer will try to understand what it is and direct you to some resources in order to save on human work hours. This is a perfect application for language learners. It's called a word book. And it allows you to compare your Chinese pronunciation to the correct Chinese pronunciation, especially when it comes to the tones. It's free, you can try it out online. Word book. The website is kind of complicated. It's so you just Google word book. So this is also an application where your computer has to I guess do an autocorrect of your pronunciation and try to tell you how you can improve your pronunciation in Chinese. Some problems of computational linguistics. Misspellings are a huge problem for computers. You've probably seen this text where every single word is misspelled in English and you can still read it. It's been floating around the internet for a long time. So for humans, this is not much of a problem, but for computers, as soon as you misspell a word, it's no longer in the dictionary, and they have a lot of trouble with that. Also, missing lexicon entries. I mean, for example, swearing is often not included in the standard dictionaries. Or slang, especially modern slang. So a big problem, missing words. Deconstruction of compound nouns, not so much in English, but for example in German or in Esperanto. There are two distinct problems with that. One is that you don't know where to split those words. There is a famous Esperanto band called Persone. Persone can be understood in two words, in two ways. One is per sono, through sound, and the other is persone, personally. So we want to know if we have to split per and son, or if it's one word, person. And computers have trouble finding it out because they don't have the understanding of the context that we do as humans. Also, the meaning. It can be difficult to figure out the meaning of compound words. Like in German, there's a famous dish called Jägerschnitzel. Schnitzel is a famous German dish. Jägerschnitzel is a schnitzel hunter style. And there's also a Schweineschnitzel. Schwein is a pig, so it's a pork schnitzel. But the relation between the two words is different in both cases. Schweineschnitzel is a schnitzel made of pork, but Jägerschnitzel is not made of schnitzel made of hunter. Again, not a problem for humans, but for computers. Identifying the word root. If I say lay, it could be past tense of to lie, so in the sense of was lying, he lay, or he lay as in he put something down. It's two different word roots that you have to identify, so we have to think, is lay past tense here or not. Homonyms, like If you hear the word die, it could be to die, it could be the die, for coloring something. This is a problem for dictation software. Reference targets, that means if you have a word like she or that, this could refer to different things. She in Romance languages could even refer to an object. If it's a feminine word, then they might use she to refer to an object rather than to a woman. So you really can't translate it as she in English. Human translators, no problem. Yeah. And syntactic ambiguity, if you think of the word, a sentence like, I see the girl with the binoculars. Do I see her with the binoculars? Does she have the binoculars? And for computers, this is a problem for every single sentence where you have a noun phrase and following a prepositional phrase, because computers never know if the prepositional phrase belongs to the main clause or is a description of the noun. Vague adjectives are another problem. If I say a big elephant, the big means something else than if I say a big fly. But it could mean both. If you think about it, a big fly could be a fly that's as big as an elephant. Or it could be a fly that's bigger than average. Presuppositions, implications, a phrase like the American king is dead. Yeah, basically it seems to imply that there is a king of America. And maybe it's some kind of a reference that we're not aware of, like the king of jazz. Maybe there's a king of America, but basically we have sentences that the computer cannot evaluate as such. Sometimes we need knowledge about the world. For example, to translate the English word go to German, we have to think, is it fahren or fliegen or gehen? Basically to drive, to fly, to walk. Or in French, grand could be tall, could be big, could be huge or great. In English, there seems to be the difference based on the dimensions. Tall is someone who's, big in one direction, and and big in 2 dimensions, and huge in 3 dimensions. So, but in German there's only groß, and in French there's only grand. So you have to know implications. If you call a person grand, it might be tall or it might be big. And if you're talking about a building, you'd probably use huge and not tall. So that's something where we consult our inner knowledge. We have a lot of knowledge about the world, and this knowledge allows us to pick automatically the correct translation for this word. Because we know that a building is typically big in 3 dimensions. So huge. And a person would be tall and not huge. Maybe huge too. And also really difficult, the relation between what is said and what is meant. For example, if I say, I'm hot, I probably... No, I'm really hot right now. I would like you to open the window. So that's another way that you simply cannot communicate with a computer at this time. You would have to be specific and say, please open the window. So let's say that machine translation, especially, is one subject I'm very familiar with because I worked on a machine translator for 2 years. Machine translation has a lot of problems. Most of the problems are not even as complicated as this. I mean, if you look at Google Translate, they cannot do the adjective agreement in Spanish, and that's something really simple. I mean, if I see a word that ends in a, I know that the adjective has to end in a, okay? Well, if it's a certain type of adjective. So there's a lot of very simple problems that we're still struggling with in computational linguistics, and some approaches are better for something and not so good for other things. But even after all this is solved, we still have these problems, which will ensure that if any of you are planning to become a translator, there's no need to discourage you. You can become a translator. We will need you. We will need you. And that's already part of the outlook I wanted to give you. So one of the important research goals is certainly machine translation. There's so much still to be done, especially since people also want spoken translation, spoken input, spoken output, which adds another problem because you first have to translate the spoken word into some kind of written representation, and there can be many errors made in that already. If you think about dictation software, you still have to correct it a lot of times. And then spoken output, which is somewhat less difficult. But yeah, disambiguation in between that and then translation. And people want it, so people are working on it, but it's not like to be good for a long time yet. Also, automatic indexing and summarizing becomes really, really important with the flood of information. I mean, just look at YouTube, they're getting 72 hours of new content every single second. Every second you would have to watch 72 hours. Now, if you can imagine, they have some editors, the editors won't be able to deal with this. So ideally, they would like something automatic, a computer, to be able to tell them what this video is about. And that requires some understanding of the human language. Also, spam filters. How can you tell that something is spam? Is another application of computational linguistics. We want to be able to classify things. We want to be able to summarize things. If you look for information, there are too many news sources right now on the internet. Ideally, we would like a service that is going to take the information from all major reputable sources and then give you a nice little report. Right now, CEOs have secretaries to do that, but it won't be possible anymore in the future. There would be too much information. So it would be a good idea for computers to be able to at least do a pre-sort. Yeah, machine translation is still very difficult. This is a sentence I tried, I entered it in English. I wrote machine, wait, let me give you the exact sentence so you can reproduce it. Yeah, I wrote machine translators don't translate well. And I translated to Chinese and back, and it says machine translation is not translation.
Almost.
Yes. So you can try it. Machine translators don't translate well. Yeah, we're still struggling with it. Of course, conveying the feeling of a text or accounting for cultural differences is another thing that automatic translators won't be able to do for a long time. And cultural differences do affect translation. For example, if you've ever ridden a train, there's a sign that says "Don't lean out of the window." And in German it says the equivalent of leaning out of the window is forbidden. And in Italian it says it's dangerous to lean out of the window. So they're using different ways of phrasing in order to really get people to not lean out of the window. And in German it's important to insist it's forbidden. But I hear that if you tell an Italian person that it's forbidden, they're going to do it. So instead they're saying it's dangerous. So, lastly, I wanted to ask this question: will computers ever replace human translators? Well, I don't see it happening. Not for professional texts. Let's say if you want to write a letter to a friend, yes, okay. If you want to understand the basic idea of a website, yes, you can already do that today. But actual professional translation of, say, legal texts or any text where accuracy is important, no. Or, let's say, advertisement text, no way. On the other hand, just stop responding. Oh no, okay. Will it replace poets? I mean, look at this. It lay on the table, a candle burning at each corner, upon the envelope tied in a soiled pink garter, 2 artificial flowers. Not hit a man in glasses. This is not a machine. This is Faulkner, a British poet. Was it British or American? William Faulkner. And he won a Nobel Prize for his literature. And if you can think of this as something deserving of a Nobel Prize, I personally want to see Babelfish nominated next year. All right, that's basically what I wanted to say. Do you have any questions? Yes?
I'll give you this microphone and then we'll take the roving microphone. Thank you very much, Judith, that was fantastic. Okay, so hands up. Ooh. Okay, I'm going right to the back first, and I'm going to make work forward. Okay, fair's fair. Wow, it's a long walk.
I have an anecdote and then a question.
Yeah.
So the anecdote is that one of my friends works on machine translation, and he'd worked on one of the systems for several years, and a customer came along and said, "That's really useless. I'm sure my 5-year-old can translate better than that." And my friend said, "Yeah, but my software is only 3 years old." But my question is, I have a friend who works at Google, and he said one of the reasons that Google Translate gives back pretty poor translations is because of time limits. People want the answer quickly. If you were willing to let Google spend an hour crunching your sentence, it could come back with a much better translation. So, my question is it, in that case, a matter of needing better software, or is it just that when computers are 1,000 times faster in hardware, then many of these problems will just be solved with existing software capabilities?
Hardware improvement is certainly going to help machine translation, and already if you have some translation software for the computer, it can usually achieve a better translation because it just has more computing power assigned to it than Google can give you, because your computer has more computing power than what they have on the net, which is split by so many users. So that's already better, but there remain problems that won't be able to solve just with more computing power. Like I said about the world knowledge, you would have to model information about the typical size of basically anything in the world in order to be able to tell how to translate some words. Or you have to model the information about Italians not liking the phrase "it's forbidden" in order to be able to do a decent translation of that. So in total there's too much to account for. There will be certainly much better machine translation in the future. I'm personally working on that, but there will also be problems that we still need human translators for. Yep.
Okay.
Sorry for my English, but I try to ask question. I want to ask translation with the computer. It is based on statistical information, or it is connected with the research of understanding how the natural language works. And I understand that the true, as usually, sometimes in average, but it is possible to construct machine translation which will be based only in statistic information, statistic about some connection between two or more languages. So.
Yes, this is the most common approach right now, and the one also used by Google, which is why they cannot conjugate Spanish correctly, is because they don't have rules in the back, they use statistics. So ideally we would want a system that's a bit of a hybrid, that uses both the rules and the statistics, because for some phrases the statistics are going to be too weak to support one translation over another. And there has also been an attempt to try to have computers understand language the way that we do, they're actually trying to teach them the meaning of each word and to model the sentences like he hit the nail with the hammer, and to actually have a computer representation of that. But this is not far advanced yet.
Hello. My question is, so for example, if you are a newbie in a certain language and you want, how do you suggest going on with translations? Like for me, I'm learning Spanish at the moment, and I'm using some translations like Google Translate, Babelfish, and I think, but some, I think, of course, not all the translators, computer translators are quite good. I find that SpanishDict.com is quite good in translation. But of course, if you're a new, how do you know that? Because sometimes I tend to, just depend. So what would you suggest for a newbie in a certain language to do?
Yes, one general advice is to use English as a base language, because if you don't, Google is still going to translate your text through English in most cases. They have very few parallel texts that don't involve English. So that's one way to already get much better quality from them. The other is you may want to look for your sentence on Tatoeba first, because they have a large database of common or not so common sentences. And if you can find one that is very similar to what you want to say and just swap out one word, then you're likely to have better quality than if you use Google Translate. Also, you can try and use Google Translate and afterwards check the conjugations and the adjective agreement and everything that you know rule-based about the language. I sometimes refer to Google to see if a certain combination of words is typical, like I'm currently writing my thesis, so I want to know, is this word commonly used with this other word? So I Google that, and if it doesn't work, I try a different combination, maybe a slightly different word that has the same meaning, to see if that combines well with that sentence, with that other word, if this is a common sentence. And you can use either Google twice or use a site like Google Fight in order to find out which one is more common. Like you Google two sentences and you see which one gets you more hits, which is likely to be more correct.
So speaking of hits and your nail and hammer, obviously any person or machine can do a better job at translating if they understand what's being said. So now you had on one slide I forgot the word, but implications and presuppositions, that was it. So if we have a phrase, like for example, Richard went to the supermarket, we suppose a lot of information that's actually not being said in the phrase, like for example, Richard probably had the intention of buying groceries, because that's what you usually do at the supermarket. Maybe he wanted to do something else, but that's a safe assumption. Or Richard was closed, because that's what people usually do when they go outside. And that's information which is not in the phrase. So in order to actually understand that, don't you have to go beyond language and linguistics into the sphere of civilization, culture, and thinking models in order to successfully translate complex things into a different language?
Definitely, you would have to do that if you want to make a viable system out of it. As far as I know, this system just goes as far as using different tools and different actions that you can use with the tools so far. They haven't gone very far in modeling it.
I have also a little question. Hello, Judith. I have a question. How does computational linguistics deal with the language courses? Something should be done, really. The boring CDs should go away now. So, yeah, I think, are there any problems now to struggle, and soon we will have something really web? Or we still should remain to people and contact and practice with them? So, computational linguistics and language courses.
Yes, you may want to check out Duolingo, which is partly based on that. Duolingo.com is a free site where you can learn a bunch of languages. I think right now it's French, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, and German. So they already have a bunch of languages that you can learn this way. And the idea is that it gives you sentences, and you have to translate those sentences. in either way, or you have to write down a sentence that you listen to, which is done with machine synthesizing, voice synthesizing. So they're using this. They don't use machine translation initially. Because you cannot really depend on it. I mean, you can give a sentence into Google and it's more likely to be wrong than right. So you cannot have people learn this kind of sentence. But you can have a lot of machine translated sentences and then have a human go over these and make adjustments. And I know that the EU is also working on a system like this, using a system like this, to first have texts translated by machine, and then have a human translator improve on that. And I'm sure that Robert will have some words to say about that in his talk.
Great. Actually, I can verify that that's currently what the EU does. They usually have a machine do the first translation, and then they have a human translator come along and then correct it. I know that during your presentation you said that you don't think that human translators will ever be replaced by computers. I agree. I think there will always be a role for human translators, for sure, but I think that will almost certainly change the extent to which they're involved. Inspired by the Google glasses, I have a question, and this is probably a dystopia for a lot of the polyglots that are here. But can you foresee a day, for example, where we have something like a headset or some technological device where that's connected to us, where we can walk around and just speak in our native tongue, and we just say, "I'm in Hungary," the guy's Hungarian, translate to Hungarian, or he has a headpiece and it's automatically translated for him. And if you can foresee that, how long do you think it will be when that is commercialized? So we can see, and this will stay up obviously for a long time, this YouTube video, so we can see how accurate the prediction was. In 20, 30, 100 years, maybe we'll have great-grandchildren. Thank you.
I believe that you can already get this software for your iPhones, so assuming that the same company will also publish it as an app for Google Glass, you shouldn't have to wait too long. However, it's crap, and it's hard to predict when it will not be crap.
When will it be good though?
I think it will depend a lot on what you want to say and in which languages, because the research is good for, say, English to Spanish. Say English to Spanish, you may have something decent in 5 to 10 years. But if you're going to English to Chinese, I don't know, I might have grandchildren by the time.
Another question, you mentioned that the lack of knowledge, word knowledge, is a major problem for automatic translation. So I think the biggest resource, the biggest free resource for word knowledge is Wikipedia. So do you know about approaches that use the incorporated word knowledge in Wikipedia for automatic translation?
Yes, there are pilot projects like this. If you look at the universities, what they're doing in terms of research on machine translation, the problem is that there are very few companies doing, actually actively researching machine translation. Most are just improving on existing systems. Some even use Systrans still, which was developed in the 60s. So there's limited amount that you can do with old systems like that. But if you look at the new research, which will eventually become converted into commercial products, then you have something like that, yeah, integration of Wikipedia.
Hi. This may be a highly technical question for non-translators. Whoa, dude. Okay. For non-translators, it may be a bit boring, but based on hardware and hardware development in the next couple of years, and based on what that colleague there said about the future of the online translator and like the thing you see in Star Trek, the universal translator, I think there's a project going on for that, and there's like an horizon about 10 years that coming to fruition. Based on the hardware development with the new quantum computers, which I read like last week, a quantum computer that's kicked ass on the normal PCs. Do you think that taking a term base, let's say an STL term base, and feeding into that computer, would it help to actually translate everything and take out the human element, all the exolinguistic or paralinguistic elements?
No, there's only a limit that a limit of things that you can do with better hardware. You eventually need better systems, because what better hardware will give you is more possible translations, but you still need a way to distinguish between all the different solutions that you're getting. With more hardware, you get more results. You have to find a way to get to identify the best result.
I wonder, is it possible for the computer to recognize its own shortcomings, its own deficiencies? I mean, for example, if I want the translation of a sentence, maybe I wouldn't like to know those results that are not certain, which are tentative, which are hypothetical. I would only like to know those results which are 90 or 100% certain. So is it possible for the computer to separate those parts of the knowledge that it can give me with pretty high certainty, and leave the others to my own consideration, so I can look them up by myself?
Yes, it can do that, but in some ways, sometimes it doesn't actually calculate this certainty. Like I'm pretty sure that Google Translate does not tell you the certainty of each of the suggestions that you can get if you look at a translation of a sentence. And sometimes it really depends on the understanding of the sentence. When there's no understanding of the sentence, then you cannot determine if a certain word is infinitive or imperative or whatever. So those are cases where it cannot give you a certainty for this kind of information.
Okay, we'll take one last question, and then we'll have a break for something to eat.
In a situation like a European Union or other international organization, you need some time to translate many texts in many languages simultaneously. Of course, now it's done by human translators, but maybe in some 20, 30 years it will be done probably partially by some automated systems. So I don't remember exactly, but I think it was Bill Clinton in the 90s. He proposed to the Congress that the American laws will be done with a simple language. Because in English you can use very sophisticated words or very simple words for the same things. So just for the case that the laws will be understood better. So the question is, I think probably there is someone who already does it. Is it some kind of guidelines that say you have some text, to translate this text easily with automated system, you should better avoid these things and these things and these things. Is there any similar now?
Yes, you can find this this kind of list online. I mean, if you want to get a good translation, have short sentences, have clear sentences, avoid ambiguous words, which is of course difficult if you don't speak the language and you don't know which words have multiple translations.
Okay. I know there are lots and lots of questions that many of you want to ask still. I'm also conscious of the time and the opportunity for you to be able to have a nice lunch with lots of food. Actually, I'm just looking now, we've still got probably 10 minutes. I managed to leave my timepiece up here, so I couldn't keep control of exactly. Maybe 2 more questions, and then we'll, I know you had one first, David, so we'll do that and then we'll break.
So everyone in this room knows the value of learning a foreign language, so otherwise we wouldn't be here. But I'm wondering, from your point of view as a language enthusiast and working with computational linguistics, the implications in the future for language learning, because it's already, I would say, difficult to get English speakers at least to learn a foreign language. So if we do at some point get to a point where the computers can translate really well, and let's say with voices as well. In your personal opinion, is this going to make it better for encouraging people to learn languages, or make people more lazy? What do you think?
Well, I certainly doubt that there will be machine translation for everyone in any time I can imagine, even in 500 years. Let's say if you speak Lingala as your native language and you need a translation into Chinese, then you're not going to find a decent machine translator. You need to at least phrase your question in English, and this way you may get a decent translation. So there will be still need for people to learn languages, especially if they come from a smaller language for which not much research money exists. And also, I think if you come from a larger background, say from German, from English, there will be less need. Of course, even today, there's less need for English speakers to learn foreign languages, and if they have decent machine translators, they might not feel the need to learn any foreign language at all. I don't see it as much of a problem because they will be learning languages that they're actually interested in. This is my ideal world, actually, is a world in which everyone can choose the foreign language that he wants to study, and not be forced to learn English, be forced to learn Chinese or Spanish or whatever language you have to learn just in order to be able to communicate with the major part of the planet. And in this is actually the same way that I see Esperanto is, because we can each spend less time learning languages at school that we have no interest in, and then spend more time on the languages that we actually care about, that the cultures that interest us, the people that we want to interact with. Because right now, if you're
up here or somewhere, it should be safe around this.
Personal, you know that I wrote this book, Learn to Read. Those who want to the shipping cost.
Lots of. It's downstairs in the room. I sent you.